Hi, I'm Randy Samuels, and I'm just here to visit with you a little bit, tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in a Christian home. I was 7 years old when I asked Christ to come into my heart. My mother and dad both were very instrumental in me coming to know Christ, presenting the gospel to me. They were my Sunday school teachers at church, and they took me to church and taught me how to pray and taught me how to worship, and I'm so grateful for that, so thankful for that. When I was 15 years old, God called me to ministry. I knew that God wanted me to serve in ministry, wasn't real sure what that looked like, thought maybe that was going to be with youth and music, but then all of a sudden, God began to really lay on my heart that He wanted me to preach. And I've spent almost 30 years in church ministry, over 23 of the years in pastoring churches, and I've had a very unique experience as pastoring churches, and then just recently God took me out of the church and put me in Cuero State Prison. I got to tell you that it was a shock to my system in many ways. I'd ask myself, God, are you really sure about this? And He always gave me such a peace. He always told me, yes, I've got you right where I want you to be. And I tell you what, I have a peace about it, and I'm just as sure that I'm in the place God wants me to be as I've ever been. And I feel really unique about getting to minister to these the prisoners. You know, many of them have made decisions and asked Christ to come into their heart, and they're really good men. They just made some poor choices in their life, and just like all of us have made poor choices, they've made some poor choices that got them incarcerated, and they're growing. Many of them struggled with alcohol and drugs, and now that they're in prison, you know, they have kind of left that behind, and they're thinking more clearly, and they're really involving themselves in classes and in industry and learning trades, and they've really embraced their faith, and many of them have come to know Christ in a personal way. And it's been a great ministry for us. I'm just learning more and more about it, but it's exciting. And it reminds me that Jesus says that when we have ministered to the least of these, it's as though we've been doing it to Him Himself. One of my heart's goals for Parkway, and I've been a member here since November, is to really help maybe in the area of family ministry. Family ministry is really important to me. We don't want to just reach the youth and the children, which are so important to us, and we don't want to just reach young adults and music-minded people. We want to reach the entire family. I know that my dad, he loved the Lord, and he led his family to go to church on Sundays. He led the way. He was a Sunday school teacher. He was a deacon, and he was the one that led Grace at the around the family table, and he was the one that always initiated prayer, and he was just truly an incredible man, and I am so grateful that I had the privilege of being raised in a family like that. We weren't wealthy. My dad was an Air Force, was in the Air Force, and then later worked for the post office, and we had it good. But my mom was a stay-at-home housewife, and there was 4 kids, and we didn't have a lot of money, but we always felt like we had it good, all of us. And I want more than anything for families to experience a dynamic faith, not only just in the church where they go to worship, but in their home. You know, statistics say that 1 out of every 2 marriages end in divorce today. But you know, the reality is that when a husband and a wife worship together, they pray and they read their Bible daily, the divorce rate is now less than 3%. That is incredible when you think about it. It's not, you might think, why isn't that perfect? Well, because it's made up of imperfect people. But it's a perfect plan that God has placed and He has given us. And so it's really our job as the church to equip fathers and mothers on how to embrace their faith in their home with their children, so that they teach them and model for them how to pray and how to read their Bible, and they make going to church a priority, and they bring their kids and they teach them how to pray and how to read the Bible, and they teach them how to worship, teach them how to tithe, teach them the principles that God has commanded us, and teach us how to serve one another. And I think when that happens, you end up with a dynamic in the church that is unparalleled by other churches. And I think that's exactly what God wants us to model. And so it is in my heart, maybe the next step for me to see us ministering to the entire family, especially them embracing the Lord and as a whole, as a family, and coming to experience the joy and the life that God has created for them, and to feel the contentment and the satisfaction that only God can bring when we plug into His plan.